Can you manifest with negative thoughts? Hi, I am your host, Sky Cheyenne, and welcome back once again to Rebuild Reality, where as always, we talk about who we really are, why we're here, and how all of this stuff works. So, yeah, can you manifest with negative thoughts? Well, we do it all the time, don't we? And I know there's a number of things about this on the internet, like, no, you have to just think positive thoughts. You can't think negative thoughts. You have to think lovingly. You have to forgive. You got to do all this stuff. Otherwise, you can't manifest. You can't get good things. And, well, I don't really agree with that. And I used to think so. I'm like, no. I've got to think loving thoughts, let's say, especially like someone with their, a situation with their family, or someone who's they're angry at. Maybe it's an SP or their best friend and stuff, and they want to, fix the situation, or they want to get back with their SP, but they're still having all these negative thoughts. They're like, how, I have to get rid of that, and it's difficult when they keep popping up, and you think that, I only have to be pure and loving and blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, I'm not going to get this. But I think that because we do manifestations all the time with negative thoughts, obviously we get negative results, but we're thinking about it in a way where our negative thoughts, when we're thinking about stuff, is it's what we don't want. So we keep using negative thoughts to manifest what we don't want, which, as we all know, works really freaking well, doesn't it? But if we can use negative thoughts to manifest something on purpose in a way that we want it, I think it can be a really powerful thing. And one example of that Neville Goddard himself talked about was he had a friend who wanted his house painted, but he didn't have the money. He's like, I really need it painted. I really need it. I really want it, but I don't have, the money for it. So he started visualizing himself being annoyed. He's like, the painters are here, they're painting the house, but he keeps sticking his hand in the paint all the time. Like he goes in a doorway and he's like this, and he's like, oh man, oh great, or this leans against the counter. He's like, dang. And then another visualization he had was, he's just about to get in the shower. He's got a towel wrapped around him. He's just about to take it off and enter the shower. And he realizes, in the window in the second story there's one of the painters on a ladder right there painting outside. And he's like, geez, freaking A. He got his money. And he got his house painted. Money completely out of the blue, something he did not expect at all, didn't even know it was there, that it was even a possibility of a place to get money, something he didn't know about, in the slightest. So, yeah, it does work. There is a way that we can totally use that in our favor, I think, because, one, ask and it's given. It's not ask only in this way, or only the right way, or only when you're happy, and then you can have it. No, it's just ask and it's given. Which, like I said, is already really obvious that we're already manifesting really, really well all these things that we're worried about, all these things that we're afraid about, And, of course, there's also no judgment. There is no good or bad, because in all that is, there's just one thing. And good and bad and all of the perception of duality is within it. So there is no judgment. If you're like, no, you can't have that because you didn't think lovingly about, your SP, and you didn't forgive them for everything they did. And, you wanted an explanation, you wanted an apology, and you're envisioning yourself getting an apology or things like that. You're supposed to let it all go. It's like, well, first of all, as humans, that can be a bit of a big ask, especially depending how pissed off you are, with somebody. And I don't think that you have to clear up all those things, because why can't you manifest, where you get your apology, you get your explanation, where everything works out, And you can totally jump ahead and be like, where you're manifesting in your scenario is like, everything's been worked out. It's all okay. It's all over. It's all been worked out. I got everything I needed, and now we're together. You know, you can bypass the argument thing, or you can include it. It's like, yeah, you know what? I really do want to hear that apology. I really do want an explanation. You know, I love them, but I really need them to be like, yeah, I did do those things to you. A person, and I think that can be really important because we want to put these things to rest, right? And if we're having a hard time putting those things to rest, then why not manifest that scenario where you can finally put those things to rest, get the talking done, get the situations, you know, answered, get the other side of the story, and let it go. Because that's a big thing in life, and that is something that keeps us coming back here all the time, because we want a better outcome for things. It's like, no, I want the situation with these people or that person to turn out finally better, where everything did work out. And that brings people back here again and again and again. So I think it is important to work out those things. And sure, a lot of things are growing and they teach us things, but it doesn't mean we don't want to kind of clean that slate and resolve that story, because what better way to move forward, right? So that's something I think to think about, you know, when we are manifesting somebody, you know, and it can be in a way that it's like, oh, great, you know, oh, sorry to my hand, where it's kind of like, oh, great, now they apologize. After all that time, after all those years, they finally admitted to me that, or now they finally decide that they are in love with me. Really? Really? After all that? Oh, great. Now they're in love with me. You could take that kind of a attitude, and certainly it's a believable story, because we're so into thinking negative. We're like really good at it, right? So it can be a believable story for the mind to grab a hold of, you know, especially if we're like going into that story, because everything is a story. Everything in our lives is literally a story. That's why we have to tell ourselves a new story. And if we can use the negativity or the annoying kind of thing, I think actually works really well, to have that be a believable story. It's not like, oh, now is the story where, I don't know, wow, the mind's like, yeah, how did that happen? Where they just suddenly called you or knocked on the door and said, I'm in love with you, you know? And so, but from the viewpoint of you being annoyed with it, yeah, absolutely. Oh, great. Freaking great. Now they decide they're in love with me. Now, after all that, now they're in love with me? Great. You know, or how about my aunt has watched me suffering for years, barely able to make my rent, you know, eating like nothing but rice and beans and stuff, you know, for years. And now she's decided that she's going to leave me all this money now, instead of leaving it to me in her will, that I never even knew that she even had that money. You know, now you're going to give it to me after you watch me struggle for all those years? Yeah, you can tell a story that way. And mind loves those kind of stories, doesn't it? So yeah, I don't think that you have to think positively, that you can use negative or annoyed thoughts in your manifestations. I think that they can actually be really powerful a lot of times too. So I hope that helps. And I hope that you guys like and subscribe and share in this story. You know, because freaking A. I just do an off the cuff. I don't write any notes. I don't figure out really hardly even what I'm going to say beforehand. And then everyone likes this video. Everyone likes this video. After all those things, after all that work I did, suddenly this one's getting thousands of views, you know, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's so great. And it's like, really? I can't believe it. Yeah. That can happen.